Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, first of all, let me commend the leadership of this committee. I know there's been a lot of hard work put into these 3 bilateral trade agreements, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to consider them today, and I, for one, will be supporting all 3. I think it's time for us to get back in the game. I commend the USTR, the team that's been assembled in the the Obama administration for taking the 3 trade agreements that were prior negotiated by the Bush administration and made them better. There were some serious concerns, especially on this side of the aisle, into what was initially negotiated. The administration recognized it, went back to all 3 countries, and I think improved them drastically and put them in a position now where many of us feel much more comfortable supporting them, and including Colombia. I share the concerns that many of my colleagues on this side do in regards to the level of violence generally in Colombia and the level of violence with labor leaders in particular. It's an issue that needs to be addressed. However, I think the Labor Action Plan that was negotiated, that is now being implemented, is a huge step forward. And unlike our ranking member, Mr. Levine, who played an instrumental role in making sure that Labor Action Plan was in place and is moving forward, I don't share his concern that it was vitally important to have it as part of the bulk of the agreement. Mr. Reif, let me ask you, a lot of what's in the Labor Action Plan is already in process, already being implemented. Are we fooling ourselves in thinking that that will stop at some point in the future if it's not a part of the agreement, or do you think the Colombian government, with good faith effort, is going to live up to the agreement that they've reached under this plan and continue implementing and trying to continue to improve the labor violence conditions in that country?
Thank you, Mr. Kind, and I think very much so. For a number of reasons. First, I think this administration, the Santos administration, from when it started, has approached this issue with a vigor and with a seriousness. Secondly, all of the elements of the action plan, except the full hiring of all the labor inspectors, will be in place by schedule before January 1, 2012, so the President will be able to assess that Colombia has continued, as it has all the way along since the spring, to implement every single one of these steps as it's moved along. And yes, we fully expect that the government will continue to implement that plan, and we will work with them to provide assistance, to provide to share with them concerns if they arise or as they arise, which is true in other areas of trade agreements as well, as we continue to work with countries.
Let me just reiterate, my thanks to Mr. Levin for the leadership that he's shown on this issue. He really advanced the ball in my own mind. And what I'm hearing from you today, in your opinion, is the fact that it's not a part of the bulk of the agreement will not weaken the commitment of the Colombian government in regards to the Labor Action Plan as we move forward. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And I share, Mr. Bustani's concern in the line of questioning that he raised earlier today, too, that the longer we're on the sidelines, the greater market share we're going to be losing in these countries. We just had a recent meeting with Ambassador Kirk, who informed us that we've already lost close to 50% of market share for agricultural products going into Colombia in the last year alone. And they are moving forward, Colombia, Korea, Panama, with bilaterals or multilateral agreements with other countries. And the longer we wait, the more we're going to be excluding our products, our services, in getting in the country. So I think time is of the essence. Not that these agreements are going to be the panacea to what ails our economy, but being on the sideline for so long, not having a robust and aggressive trade agenda, I think has hurt our economy. And it can also be part of the solution to getting us back on track, creating the good-paying jobs that we desperately need. I know I've been hearing from a lot of my agricultural producers in Wisconsin who feel that these agreements are a good deal. They are essential for us to have increased market share. Many of my manufacturers, 3M, a train company, Cummins, are all supportive of these agreements because what they're making in western Wisconsin now is being exported but getting hit with tariffs going into these countries. That tax that's making it harder for them to remain competitive on a global scale. So these agreements will help in that regard too. I know it's difficult with the economic anxiety that we face in trying to sell these agreements with the American people, but as my colleague from Wisconsin pointed out, we're 4% of the world population. We've got to stay engaged. And this is more than just goods and services crossing borders. I think when that happens, armies don't. And it's an important tool in our diplomatic arsenal as well, that we're engaged actively in trade agreements, trying to reduce the barriers and level the playing field for our workers, for our companies. I think these three trade agreements make a huge step in that direction, provide a good template for future trade action that we hopefully will be able to work on as a committee. And again, I commend the leadership. And Mr. Chairman, I also want to thank you for your diligence with the TAA reauthorization. It's been a sticking point for too long. We got to get it done, but hopefully we'll have a chance in the future to have some hearings in committee on how we can improve the TAA process so it's much more effective and we're much more helpful to those displaced workers that are impacted adversely from trade. Thank you, and I yield back.